Hi everybody, welcome to another Divorce Workshop Talk. Today we're talking with Lea Gerlock from Personal Chapter. She's a divorce recovery coach. And I'm just going to invite her on. Just remember that Just Separated workbook is available worldwide on Amazon.
It's great to have you on, and today's a really good topic. When you brought the subject in, I went, that's a good one, a really good one, because I think I mentioned to you that I have seen that with a few people as well. But before we get into that, can you tell us a bit about yourself before we start diving into this great topic?
Yes, first of all, thank you for having me. My name is Lea, and I'm the founder of Personal Chapter. I'm a divorce recovery coach. So I help people at all stages of divorce, so whether they're thinking about it, in the midst of it, or rebuilding their life afterwards. And I help them get off the emotional roller coaster, make confident decisions, and work through challenges that are very common to arise, like co-parenting challenges, boundaries, and help them rebuild a life that they're excited to step into.
Mm-hmm. And I've often said now that I wish I had that when I was going through my own divorce. And I hear it quite often, actually, Lea, that comes up.
I hear the same too. A lot of people they're not aware that this type of support even exists now that it does exist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's really important. So today we're going to talk about resentment after divorce.
Yes.
And I think I mentioned to you, like I just want to tell a quick story about how I was doing some education talks at Chartwell,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a lady, and it was all about grief. And I had a lady that said to me, she was really angry. And I said, and that can be a grief component, right? Of death loss. That's what we're talking about. And she says, oh, I'm not, my husband didn't die. I said, oh, she goes, he left me 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, wow, like 20 years ago. And she was still holding on to that really resent and bitterness. And so we want to talk about it today because we don't want that for anybody, right?
No, exactly. And that is why I brought this topic in. Resentment is something that really can sneak up on you.
Mm-hmm.
And oops, sorry, something came on my screen. It's really something that can sneak up on you. So, and you just gave this example of 20 years. And so it starts off small,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't even realize it until over time, and it's very quiet. And then over time, it builds and builds, and you don't realize how much momentum that resentment has
Mm-hmm.
built until you try to let it go. And then you
Yeah.
realize, oh my gosh, how heavy is this? And it's not something that you can ignore. Um, it really does sneak up on you. And it literally is, if you pay attention to how you feel, it's literally like carrying a bag of rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you don't realize how heavy that bag of rocks is until you're trying to release, to let go of the
Mm-hmm.
resentment, but when you're actually put it down.
Yeah, it's actually like you feed on it, right? Like that slow growth is you're feeding it too, right?
Yeah.
I want to ask like how it shows up. I mean, I have some of my own examples, but what do you have some examples of how how or why it happens? Why does this resentment happen?
Well, I mean, it's usually,
Exactly.
when you feel like you've been wronged or
Mm-hmm.
let down. There's a lot of like unresolved conflicts. Like you feel betrayed, or like you're not feeling appreciated. And the reason it's important to really understand that is because it doesn't just stay in one place. It really spills into other
Mm-hmm.
areas of your life. Number one being your health.
Yeah, I
And
mentioned
so
that in I wrote notes about it and I went, your health also takes a big effect with this.
absolutely, anything that manifests in our life is what we continuously think about.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we are consistently focused and thinking about how we were wronged,
Mm-hmm.
what they said, what they did, all the things that we can't control, that's going to eat away at us and cause disease.
Well, just to mention that Dominic life force mentioned, meanwhile, we're sipping on the poison, hoping the others suffer.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly right.
It's 100%
Yeah.
that, 100%. But we actually feel some relief in that resentment. So that is why we're hanging on to it. But when we understand the cost of it, we might consider, all right, I'm feeling relief. How can I use that to help myself to be able to move forward, as opposed to it actually holding me back? But sometimes we don't even realize it's holding ourselves back until we're, trying a new endeavor. And then we realize, oh, I can't seem to be able to move forward in this. Or we, if you're after the divorce process and you're entering a new relationship, you realize when you enter into the new relationship, you're bringing all those unmet needs into the relationship. And so it's really about also shifting the focus and asking yourself, like, what do I need? What do I need to heal? And focusing on what you can change.
Yeah, one of the things that comes up too with some of my clients as well is they're comparing how they're doing compared to their ex.
Oh,
right.
Well, one of the biggest traps is going on social media. So this is like where boundaries comes in. You have to have boundaries for yourself, not just for your ex. If you're getting triggered by what they're doing and how, it's like you feel really justified with the resentment, because it's like, how dare they move on with their life? And so the trap is you're going on social media, you're taking a look at what they're doing, and it's keeping you connected to the pain. It's not helping you move forward. So it's about setting a boundary with yourself.
I think that's important, because they're like, well, they're already moved on. They've got a new girlfriend, a new boyfriend, and why am I not? And or you hear it from your kids. They come home, or they tell you before they're dating, and you're like, well, I'm not dating yet. Why? So the cycle just continues. And so I think it's learning to start focusing on yourself, not so much on what your ex is doing.
Right. And not in a way of beating yourself up. If you're noticing that you're getting triggered when you're looking, yes, you set the boundary, stop looking. However, it's also an opportunity to say, oh, 1 second, I'm having a reaction to this. What's going on with me? What is it within me that might need to be healed? And so you are shifting the focus to yourself, and you're doing yourself a great service, so that when you choose to go into another relationship, you're going into it from a place of all your needs being met. You're not looking to that other person to fill a void within you.
Yeah. True. I want to ask you a question, and this is something I thought of this morning. We don't have the stats, but is it more common for people that were left to feel resentful than the ones that did the leaving? Or do you think it's common for both?
No, it's very common for the ones who left to think that they're good, to think that they have no anger or resentment, and to feel empowered initially that they made the decision to have the courage to be able to leave and know that they can handle it. And once everything settles, because in the beginning everything's all, you're very busy, you're focused on your new life and fixing your home and things like that. And once you've had time to sit down and be in a quiet space, you start reliving everything that happened, all the arguments that you had and what they did and what they didn't do, and all of a sudden it brings up all these emotions. Again, this is not a bad thing, this is actually a good thing, but we tend to suppress our emotions. We don't want to feel them. But when we understand that our emotions are our personal GPS, I mean, they tell you exactly what you need, what's going on in your life, and which direction to go into. So again, this is all a good thing. It's not like looking at negative emotion as being negative. It just doesn't feel so good. But no, it's even the people who decide that they're the ones that want to leave the marriage. There's a grieving process, and part of that process is resentment.
Yeah, and I know in my grief world that you can be grieving before as well. So you can be grieving before you leave, you've been grieving during your when you leave, and then after. I'm just more aware of it because it's my specialty, right? But a lot of people aren't even aware that what they could be feeling after and during or before is grief,
Yes.
right? And as you said, they delay and they don't even acknowledge it, and they push it down, and it comes out as you said, as in a fuel of resentment and anger and
Yeah.
bitterness.
And it's really important what you just said about grieving before you've left, because you may have come to the realization things aren't the way they were. You don't believe that they can go back to what they were or be better.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're grieving what the relationship was. And a lot of times we're not really aware of what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
and or that we're grieving or what we're feeling, but there's like something's off. And really what it is, it's like, wow, like we're both changing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times people may look at change as, well, that's it, we're done. We need to go our separate ways, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. It could be a really wonderful thing, and it's actually appreciating the change in the other person and coming back together with the values that you share and finding common ground, and seeing if it still can work. Because I'm not pro divorce, pro
Mm-hmm.
the it's really taking a look at, what does this change mean for the two of you,
Mm-hmm.
and are both of you on board? But yeah, there's definitely a grieving process initially when you realize that there's a change. I mean, we're always growing. That's
Mm-hmm.
change is the only constant. So we're always growing and expanding. But are we doing it at the same? I don't want to say exactly the same, but are we doing it at the same rate, that will complement each other,
Mm-hmm.
or is it in a way that's really causing a lot of anger, resentment, frustration that needs to be worked through to see if this relationship's going to continue or not?
Yeah, and I also want to bring up that because this came up when I mentioned to you that I had done some support groups of divorce a while back, and the concept of failure came up, and that can also bring in those feelings of resentment, right? You feel like you failed. It seems to be a universal feeling when you've come to that realization that this marriage, we've either grown apart or whatever other. I mean, there's a lot of other issues that go on with divorce, but um, you know, we, myself included, I felt like I failed. And so, what are your thoughts on that?
There's no such thing as
Mm-hmm.
failure. I mean, that's a choice to look at it
Mm-hmm.
that way. We it's a learning opportunity. There really is no such thing as failure. You try something and it may not have worked out the way you planned, but it probably worked out in your best, um, for your higher good.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always a learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so when
Yeah.
you have nothing to fear because there's no failure, when you believe that there is no failure, there's nothing to fear. So it won't stop you from trying different things.
Mm-hmm. Trying to move forward.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the what are some of the tips or recommendations you do that for people that are feeling they're deep and resentful, like they're still feeling really bitter about the divorce?
So probably the first thing is recognizing, like bringing some
Yeah.
awareness to, what am I feeling? And that there's something off. You might be able to pinpoint it. You might not be able to. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really just recognizing, that you're feeling some type of emotion that doesn't feel good. So being aware of it, acknowledging it, and not beating yourself up for it, because it's not a bad thing. And so, and really, it's the only way that we can start moving forward from it. But what you want to do is, so you're not judging it, but what you want to do then is you want to ask yourself, like, what am I feeling? What do I need right
Mm-hmm.
now? You
Yeah.
know, so often we don't ask ourselves, what do I need? What do I want?
Mm-hmm.
in order to be able to even start to unravel what's going on inside. It might take a few vents to get there. So journaling for sure, write down all your feelings, everything that you feel you need or or want. But if you feel like, if something comes up for you that you identify, like, I didn't feel respected, I didn't feel acknowledged, I didn't feel supported, I didn't feel like I had closure, then you know what? You recognize that to the point where you can focus on how you can appreciate yourself. So you're meeting your own needs. You're not looking for somebody else to fulfill that need. And so that's really exactly. So if you want to feel appreciated, start celebrating your wins, acknowledge your efforts,
Yeah.
remind yourself of your value, your worthiness. And if you don't remember what they are, take a look at things that actually frustrate you, because you will uncover your passions. You'll uncover what really matters to you. So, little things like that really make a difference. But again, you're moving away from codependency also, where you're not relying on someone for your happiness. And so when you're able to fulfill your own needs, imagine every relationship, whether it's a working relationship, a friendship, an intimate relationship, you are choosing a relationship based on that you're appreciating the uniqueness, and their values and their morals and whatnot. And it's really just for companionship and for the fun of it. I'm not looking at this relationship so that you can fill a void that I haven't filled. So talk about taking your power back and being in the driver's seat of your life, that everything's a choice.
And that takes time, right? Like, we're not talking about,
It's a process.
Okay, you're divorced on
No.
Monday and you're good by
No.
Friday, right? This is a process.
No, it's absolutely a process. Every day you learn something new about yourself, but you're not holding yourself back to learn everything you need to learn. You can't learn these things until you're in a contrasting situation. So when you're in a situation that's contrasting, typically we want to either beat ourselves up and say, oh my God, here we go again. This happens a lot when we start dating again. So we'll go on a date and we'll be like, oh my God, why am I attracting this kind of person, right? It's happened to me. And then you know what? Right away I say, oh, what's going on that, I attracted that person. Right away, whatever's manifesting, whatever you're thinking will evoke an emotion. And then it is attached to how you're going to show up, your behavior, the actions you take or you don't take, and then what's manifested. So, it's the law of attraction. Whatever you focus on, it grows. And so that's exactly what happens. It's great to be able to look at any contrasting situation as an opportunity. You wouldn't have been able to learn something new if this is your goal, to always grow and expand and be open to that. Then you will look at any situation that comes your way. It could be a conversation with a friend. It could be dating again, and just looking at, wow, it's an opportunity. It's a mirror. Your friendships all the relationships are a mirror to what's going on with you. And so it's an opportunity to look within and say, what was I thinking lately? What thought have I been building momentum with, or created a belief? Because that's what a belief is, a thought you continue to think, that this came into my experience. And this is how you grow. By every situation that occurs, this is how you grow, but not beating yourself up for it. I keep repeating myself with that, because that is like the biggest thing. It's like, it's so common to be in a situation, guilty as charged here, to be in a situation and, initially you're like, oh gosh, and that's okay. Like, you know what? We're not trying to get rid of anything. We're just trying to recognize, and then redirect yourself to a thought that feels better.
To me, it's the principle of self-compassion, right? I use that all the time. It's almost like you just said, don't beat yourself up. It's the same thing. Just really practice a lot of self-compassion, right? Like, treat yourself as you would your best friend.
Yeah.
Like, what would the
Yes,
best friends say to you? They're not going to beat you up, right? So
right.
just try to say that in your head, right? Like when you're starting to go down that path, you go, okay, stop. Like this isn't going to make me feel much better. So
Yeah, and
it's a practice though.
it's yes, it's definitely a practice, but it's also knowing like you have nothing to prove. You don't need to prove your worthiness and that you're
Mm,
already worthy. And if anybody has said to you or implied that you're any less than them, let's say,
mm-hmm,
it's about them. You know, a lot of people will put you down in order to bring themselves up.
mm-hmm.
And what people say and do, what they believe, it's about them. It has nothing to do with you. And so when we realize that really it has nothing to do with you, then your worthiness is not attached to somebody else's opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And especially with divorce, I mean, there's still stigma out there about it. So there are going to be comments that are kind of come your way, maybe by friends or family.
Well,
So
yes, absolutely, because they can only come to you with what they believe.
yeah.
If they have not moved beyond their own belief, or at least taken a look at their belief and questioned it,
Mm-hmm.
then they can only bring that to you. And so it's really just about what they believe. It doesn't make it factual.
Right.
It's not, you know,
Yeah. So
exactly.
true.
Yeah, a lot of people don't believe in
Yeah.
divorce. Okay, that's, you know, that's your perspective. You can respect that. It doesn't mean that you need to feel bad about your decision. You do what's
Yeah.
good for you, and other people do what's good for them.
Yeah. Which which is not which brings me to the point where make sure you're talking or hanging around the right people, right? You know, when you're having conversations, like make sure if you're going to talk to a family member that is anti-divorce or is not going to support you, you know, just be mindful when you're with that energy or when you're with that a family event that you're just kind of like, okay, you know, just be mindful of what you're, especially with family, because you can't, it's not, friends you can choose more, right? Family sometimes you can choose, but for sometimes it's harder. I've had it with clients and they're like, well, they keep beating me up, and that's that boundaries, right? But you know,
Well, that's why ideally you want to speak to a neutral person. So whether it's a
mm-hmm,
therapist or a coach, because, you know, the neutral person, you can talk through the emotional side of it
mm-hmm,
and develop tools in order to be able to move forward.
mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
to handle situations like that are going to be coming up, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, because there's a lot that comes up. I mean, co-parenting is the biggest one in communication, and realizing that you're able to set a boundary with, you know, not depending on the type of relationship that you have, if it's amicable or not. Initially, a lot of times it's not amicable,
mm-hmm,
and so these conversations are very difficult. So it's setting a boundary of, you don't need to get into every argument,
mm-hmm,
every conversation about everything that happened. You know, you make the decision that the conversation is going to be what's in the best interest of the children, and
mm-hmm,
that's it. So it's about co-parenting, and leave the arguments um, out of it. There's just absolutely no reason for it. And I'll tell you what is possible. You know, when you say about stigma, everybody looks at divorce as, you know, everybody's fighting for themselves and they hate their ex, and there's, you know, having um, groups on Facebook about hate, you know,
mm-hmm,
hating
mm-hmm,
on your ex and whatever. And it's very natural to feel all the feels that you have initially, because there's so many different emotions that you go through, and it's years of buildup of all the arguments and everything that occurred. And so it's very natural to feel like you want to protect yourself. But when you do the work, which is only you,
yeah,
everything within you, when you do the work and you start the healing process, I like to say that I'm helping to show people what divorce can look like. So I've reached a point where I'm friends with my ex.
Mm-hmm.
And it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Anything is possible. Of course, you need two willing participants.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
However, if you focus on what you can control, and that is looking within and starting the healing process by filling the needs that you feel that you are missing, then you're able to move forward in any direction that you want to move in. So whether it's wanting to have a better relationship, friendship with your ex, or entering into a new relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Are there any like practical tools? Like I was, like mindfulness, meditation, journaling. We talked about, like, I'm a big component of narrative therapy. Are there any things like that? Like I know for me, exercise, forest bathing, releasing some of the stress cortisol
Yeah.
levels. Like, is there any more you want to add?
Okay. So definitely journaling, there's no right or wrong answer here. You have to do
Mm-hmm.
what feels good for you.
Mm-hmm.
So when you've built a lot of momentum on a particular thought that you're thinking,
Mm-hmm.
really the best thing is to quiet your mind. And you're thinking, but when I've built so much momentum, how in the world do I quiet my mind?
Mm-hmm.
The best way I personally have found to
Mm-hmm.
quiet my mind is to get off the subject and focus my attention somewhere else. And that is usually the picture of the dog that my kids have, Bauer.
Mm-hmm.
Instantly it shifts my energy and I can start to smile. I can, so really just redirecting your thoughts somewhere
Mm-hmm.
else. If you can't stay on the same subject and think of positive aspects, because
Mm-hmm.
that's typically what I would recommend is shift your focus to the positive aspects and then get into this good feeling place.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you can't, focus on something else, get off the subject. And so from a good feeling place, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be opening yourself up to being able to look at a situation that you've only looked at in one particular way that wasn't serving you.
Mm-hmm.
And you might be able to actually look at positive aspects about it. And so it's like you don't want to go from hatred to all of a sudden feeling absolute appreciation and passion and joy. You're not going to be able to
It's not even
stretch that
possible,
far.
especially at the beginning. Yeah.
Right. So you want to actually just recognize where you're at. So a lot of times, so for example, if you're feeling really powerless, depressed, lethargic, apathy, you're stuck,
Mm-hmm.
you can't move, maybe getting mad is a really good idea
Yeah.
because it'll slingshot you out of that depression to be able to start taking action. But if you're feeling really angry and you're not getting the relief that it once gave you,
Mm-hmm.
then a really good idea is to go focus on something that really brings you joy. So whether it's looking at a picture of a dog or go petting a dog or what it is, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is for you. So I find intentionally directing your attention,
Mm-hmm.
directing your focus on things that feel good puts you in a completely different vibration
Mm-hmm.
to be able to attract different thoughts.
Yeah.
Right?
And those different thoughts can bring up different type of activities or different types of movement
Instantly.
forward, right? Like
Instantly.
we have an exercise in the book, and it's like this the secret, the garden. And it's like, if you focus on this dark rock of divorce,
Yeah.
nothing else is going to grow, right? So it's the same thing what you're saying. Like if you're just going to, well, when you switch your thoughts, you're going to have the possibility of growing around the divorce, right? And that's what you want.
Well, the way it works is, I mean, if you focus on things you're grateful for, the universe is going to bring you more things to be grateful about. That's how it works. So if you intentionally redirect your thoughts, because the goal is not to never think a thought that you've thought before. You know,
Mm-hmm. It's not possible.
You don't want to waste your energy on
Mm-hmm.
that. But if you do take a moment to think what you're grateful for, what are you appreciating in this moment? So for, like I said, I'm just using the example for me. When I go look at pictures of Bauer, oh my God, it just, and honestly, I'm a different person. Like
Mm-hmm.
it, and so all of a sudden, if I'm feeling differently, then my behavior is different, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever action I'm taking is different. So what do you think I'm going to attract in return?
Mm-hmm. True.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's a very, very powerful exercise that
Mm-hmm.
I do. And really, it's about, first of all, making the decision to start becoming more aware, tapping into how am I feeling, asking myself, how am I feeling right now? Or what am I feeling
Mm-hmm.
right now? And so then we can catch it quicker. The more aware you are, the more choices are available to
Mm-hmm.
you. And so if you say to yourself, oh, I'm thinking this right now, and this is how I'm feeling. How do I want to feel instead? And so, to redirect yourself to a different thought. So that's one
That's
way.
a good one.
Uh, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean
And
that's
it's
a
easy. Everyone can do it. They can pick something, right?
yes. There's
It's
at least one thing in your life that you can look at to be grateful for. That's easy, and
mm-hmm.
then you could pick harder things later on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, when you think of law of attraction, so if you're thinking about your ex and you're thinking about all the things that you hate about him or her, that's what's going to be growing in your space.
Mm-hmm.
But if you start looking at positive aspects, things that you did like about that person, and things that you envision to be, so let's say envision what you want your life to look like, and does that include all this great relationship with your ex?
Mm-hmm.
Right, you look at the bigger picture, take away what you feel wronged about, because you're going to work through those things. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're able to focus on the positive aspects of what you want your life to look like, or positive aspects of your ex, if you want to release that anger and resentment, because remember, it's keeping you connected to the pain. It's not allowing you to move
Mm-hmm.
forward. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, it's a choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if that's really, really good suggestion. It's a hard one.
It's a
I
hard one.
remember in the beginning, it was so hard.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean? Think of positive aspects. Like, I have no positive. And so that was baby steps. But I have to tell you, it's transformational.
Yeah, that's what we've talked about that though today. Like it is a process. We're not talking about
Over.
this is
Yeah.
we're quite post in
Yeah.
our where we are, right?
Yeah.
So but when you're in the midst of it, I like what you said because it's baby steps, right? We're not, if you're grieving heavy or you're angry, feel it, right? But the baby steps of what you're saying is true. Start small,
Yeah.
start really small,
Yeah.
and
And
that can really
truly
help.
allow yourself to feel it without
Yeah.
judgment.
Yeah.
Don't judge yourself for feeling how you're feeling. Because if you suppress how you feel, then when you get into another relationship, that's when you're going to realize that you didn't actually deal with the stuff.
And
So,
think about the lady that I mentioned at the beginning that's 20
yeah,
years post, and
yeah,
now she's in a chartwell and she's very bitter and angry. And I don't think any of us want to spend the rest of life we have feeling so bitter and so angry that happened so long ago.
that's right. And you never know when it's going to come up, and clearly how it came up now. And if you want to test the waters, so the example of like going to social media, if you want to test the
Mm-hmm.
waters where you are and it's been a while, go back to social media and take a look at what your ex is doing. And if you're still getting triggered, you still have work to do.
Yeah, it's good test though, right?
Yeah,
Like to just to
yeah,
see, because they're also, they're also going through their own stuff too, right? So, but I like that.
yeah,
Just give yourself a test, and if it doesn't, if it brings up a lot of things,
yeah,
then
yeah,
you'd like to look back and say, okay, we had a really, really lovely chapter, right? Like that's kind of
yeah.
what we'd all like, right? It's one chapter of our life, right?
And you can still have an amazing chapter afterwards
Mm-hmm.
with your ex as well, if it's a choice. But listen, you have to make the decision that you want to live a different life, that
Mm.
you want to be happy. As long as you make that decision, you're going to start to move in that direction, because you're going to remember what's the intention here?
Mm-hmm.
The intention is, I want this. I want to live happy. I want to feel secure. I want to feel whatever your intention is, because it's the message that you're giving yourself, and that will determine what actions we take or don't take.
Mm-hmm.
So it's come back to, what's my intention? Well, do you want to live angry your
Yeah.
whole life? Do you want to carry that bag of rocks, or do you want to let it go?
Yeah.
Do you want to feel freedom? Do you want to feel peace?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to feel belief,
Mm-hmm.
knowing, and not just fake it till you make it? And so one of the ways is really tapping into how you feel,
Mm-hmm.
and again, not judging, because it's your GPS. It will tell you everything you need to know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think be aware of that, right? Like, yeah. So there was a lot today on
I
resentment
know.
and divorce. Great topic, though, and I think there's another topic there about. I'd like to know more about. I'd like to have another conversation about the journey, that how you became friends with your ex after, yeah, that'd be a good conversation. So,
Okay,
did
wonderful.
anybody have any comments or anything? Just put in the comment section, or a question for Lea. Otherwise, do you have anything coming up that you want to talk about? To just let everyone know.
Yes, I have a Black Friday special on a transformational assessment that I provide people with. So if you really, really want to get to know yourself on a deeper
Mm-hmm.
level, and hold a mirror up to how you're thinking and how you're feeling and how you're behaving, especially under stress, then this assessment's for you, because that's exactly what it will show you. How you're thinking, what you're feeling, and how, what it's causing in your life. And the biggest thing is under stress. There's so much that we're not aware of, how we're showing under stress.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of hidden beliefs and patterns that we're not aware of, and it brings everything to our awareness so that we can start to make the changes that we want to make. And so I'm having a Black Friday special. And so reach out to me and we can have a conversation.
I do have a question. How do you have an amicable relationship with your ex when your ex continues to cause hardship for either through alienation of your children, etc.? So I guess it's a more
So
high conflict relationship.
yeah, so obviously I would need more information about it, but very the first point that I would love to make about that is finding common ground. And so, what do you both value? Come back to your values. What is definitely in the best interest of the children? There's also different ways of communicating. So, what is your communication style? What's working? What's not working? It's not always possible. However, if we are coming at the conversation in a combative way, we're not going to actually be able to break through those barriers. But if we're able to find the common ground, look for the win-win, what do we both value? We're coming at it from a place of love, compassion, empathy, caring, and looking at the best interest of the children. So that's a great place to start. However, I'm blindly giving this suggestion without knowing enough information, but it's always, no matter what the situation is, it's always a great idea to look at, what do we both value? What is the common ground here? What does a win-win look like here? And come and I mean, again, looking at your communication style. So how am I showing up? How am I communicating? This is why that assessment's a really good thing, because we might think we're showing up one way and saying and doing all the right things, but we're actually showing up in a completely different way and we're not aware of it. So when we bring that awareness to how we are showing up and take initiative on making changes on what we have control over, a lot of times what you will see happen eventually is the other person does accommodate the wishes that you're putting forth.
Mm-hmm. So I guess it's how you're saying is how you show up, like
Has a
how you're
lot to do with it. Yeah, it does not. It's not always like that
not
because
always, yeah.
you don't. You know, there's a lot of times there's mental health issues going on, and so it's a situation where it really doesn't matter what
It's
you
not
do.
possible.
It's not possible, right? So again, that's why I'm saying I'm going into this responding blindly, but it's definitely the
Mm-hmm.
first place to start is with yourself.
Yeah.
And how can I approach this in a different way where they might actually respond instead of react to just hearing my voice?
Yeah, that's a good point. Good
Yeah,
point. All right. Thank you for your question.
no problem.
Okay, so we hope to have you back on,
Most
and
definitely. Thank you for having me.
and it was great talking to you, Leah. And
Thank
take care,
you.
everybody. Okay, bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.